An exciting young quarterback, $100 million in cap space, and the #1 overall pick. Those sound like just the right pieces for a turnaround to me.
Perfect.
Trying to give you guys a nice bite-sized video as we enter the offseason. The NFL free agency period begins March 15th, so we are mere weeks away from finding out the destinations of some of the NFL's biggest talents, and the Chicago Bears have honestly some of the best leverage in the entire NFL when it comes to, well, destination landing spots. They've got Justin Fields, who last year was one of the NFL's most exciting young rushing quarterbacks. They've got almost $100 million in free cap space that they can use to build this roster around the future of their franchise. And of course, they've got the #1 overall pick with so many options on the table, honestly. So, taking a look at all of those factors and understanding that those are all things that are on the table and in play, I wanted to discuss what the Chicago Bears may be trying to do or should do this offseason to find themselves in a better position moving forward, at least in the short term, but with the idea being the long-term possibilities of bringing Chicago back to its former glory and being a Super Bowl contender. So with all that build-up out of the way, let's just dive right into free agency. There are so many different moves the Chicago Bears could absolutely make this offseason, trying to get some amazing veteran talents that are going to be available and on the market, but I wanted to, at least in a nutshell, think of 3 guys that could make a lot of sense for the Chicago Bears. And there are, again, a number of ways the Chicago Bears could utilize that $100 million of cap space. But I wanted to think of 3 guys that are looking to be available free agents, at least according to overthecap.com, that make a lot of sense, both situationally and honestly schematically for the Chicago Bears. So starting things off, getting a wide receiver. Wide receiver is one of the biggest things the Chicago Bears are going to be focusing on this upcoming offseason. The #1 wide receiver for the Bears, with all due respect, is Darnell Mooney. And Mooney is a solid receiver, but I think the Bears could still do better. Now, this isn't a great offseason for free agency wide receiver talent as far as there being a gigantic list of amazing wide receivers slated to hit the market. But among the guys that are on that list, I think that Mecole Hardman, formerly of the Kansas City Chiefs, entering free agency, could be an interesting fit for the Chicago Bears offense. They're trying to find speed, they're trying to find that outside threat, and they're trying to get younger. And Mecole Hardman, only 25 years old if I'm not mistaken, has the ability, obviously, to be a multifaceted weapon in both the offensive and special teams plays, respectively. Mecole Hardman, speedster on the outside, looking for probably just a little bit more of an opportunity to shine. And looking at the Chicago Bears wide receiver room, I think Mecole Hardman can easily step in there and find himself, at the very least, in the wide receiver 2 position. So getting plenty of playing time, getting opportunities, finding himself with chances to get the ball in his hands. I think Mecole Hardman, for him, this makes a lot of sense. And for the Chicago Bears trying to just improve their receiver room, this makes a lot of sense as well. And with a value of about $2 million per year, you don't have to sign him to anything, overly egregious. You can still keep it incredibly affordable and get a very, exciting talent that is just waiting to find his breakout destination. But offensive line, also a big issue for the Chicago Bears. And I think there's 2 offensive linemen, at least within this free agency class, that make a lot of sense. A guy that I think could fit in a lot of places that need offensive line help. First and foremost, from the 49ers, Mike McGlinchey, the offensive tackle formerly drafted out of Notre Dame. The first rounder is a big body on the right side of the offensive line. And where the offensive line is concerned, the Bears just need help pretty much all over it. I think McGlinchey is the guy you go out and probably spend a little bit more maybe than what the market is demanding. For McGlinchey, this is a good career opportunity to at least, secure the bag, so to speak, right? You get some amazing career earnings. McGlinchey, in my eyes, is a very solid right tackle prospect in regards to the NFL, excuse me. So I think McGlinchey makes a lot of sense here. The Bears are a lot more of a run-heavy team as well, coming from the 49ers, which is also a very run-heavy system. I think McGlinchey makes a lot of sense here. Obviously going to be a solid improvement on the right side for pass protection as well, but as far as everything is concerned, I think McGlinchey, just in general, provides a big improvement on the right side of the offensive line, would be a nice anchor piece for your future of the franchise, and is worth, his value is estimated at around $10 million per season. That's the over-the-cap valuation. But if I'm the Chicago Bears, I'm tossing a little bit extra his way to just try to, put some icing on top of the cake, to want him to come to a team that, again, is in the rebuilding phase. But getting McGlinchey, you secure that right side of the offensive line. And then on the interior side, I think everything kind of develops out from the center position. So if you're looking at center, again, another just solid younger guy that's going to be a little bit more, maybe even more affordable, I think would be Garrett Bradbury, the center formerly of the Minnesota Vikings, slated again to hit free agency and has blocked for Kirk Cousins for pretty much his entire career. A very solid, well-rounded center as far as NFL standards are, and I think that it's just a general area of improvement, right? I think Bradbury, again, sub-30 veteran with, a good history. This last season was the only year he's really experienced injuries and missing games, missed 5 games last season. But before that, the previous 3 seasons of his career, pretty good track record. So for around $5 million per season on a contract, I think Bradbury is really worth rolling the dice here. Again, you're just looking as the Bears to try to improve the offensive line. There's a lot more moves they could make, but those are just 3 bites that I think the Bears could target or should be targeting going into this free agency period. And now the NFL draft, right? The centerpiece of the NFL offseason, one of the biggest spectacle events. And the Chicago Bears, honestly, sitting at number 1, control the destiny of a lot of NFL franchises based on the decision they try to move, right? I think there are realistically a couple of options that they have with the number 1 overall pick, right? I don't think there's really a wrong decision they can make with this number 1 overall pick, but obviously time tells, correct? So at number 1, I think there's one option on the table, right? You trade the pick. If it's me, I'm looking at the Indianapolis Colts, who are in dire need of a franchise quarterback, and they look very excited to try to find their next franchise quarterback. So if I'm the Chicago Bears, you don't have to fall very far back. You move just to pick number 4, because presumably within those first 4 picks, 2 quarterbacks are going to be going off the board in Bryce Young and CJ Stroud in whatever order they decide to go in. And you get the number 4 overall pick, which means you're still very much so in play for Jalen Carter out of Georgia, for Will Anderson out of Alabama, 2 defensive cornerstone pieces that you can put and plug into your defensive line and absolutely make a huge splash, right? You trade away Khalil Mack, you don't have that outside edge rusher. Will Anderson would be a great pickup. Jalen Carter's still there somehow at number 4, the interior defensive line presence. I think he'd be a phenomenal pick as well. So then when you use those extra draft picks in addition for that trade back, you just get some more weapons, you get some more depth, you help rebuild these position groups, wide receiver, offensive line, and then you just help build and find and put in more pieces in the back end as far as like your defense as well. So that's the first option. The second option, which is being considered at least throughout the media, is trading Justin Fields and keeping the number 1 overall draft pick to draft your future franchise quarterback. Justin Fields is another just hot commodity right now. He was one of the best rushers of the football in the entire NFL last season, right? And unfortunately just didn't quite have the passing attack to help make him a little bit more of a multifaceted weapon. But Justin Fields' stock incredibly high right now, right? If you trade him, you can get first-round value. If I'm the Chicago Bears and I'm considering making this trade and then drafting a Bryce Young or a CJ Stroud with the number 1 overall pick, I would probably trade Fields to maybe the Atlanta Falcons at number 8. At number 8, you can go get a phenomenal wide receiver talent as well. They've got a lot of interesting receivers this year in the first and maybe even wait into the second round. At number 8, you could do a lot of things there. You could go get Tyree Wilson and add another pass rusher that's just maybe a little bit of a step behind Will Anderson and Jalen Carter. So you have options here if you're the Chicago Bears. If you, again, you can keep Fields and draft some amazing talent still at number 1. You can trade that pick, move back to 4, get some other amazing talent, or you trade Fields to move him to number 8, and then you still have an opportunity to have a young quarterback that you can build your franchise around with a lot of draft capital, salary cap potential as well. And honestly, I don't really think there's any wrong answers here. I think the Bears are, again, just in prime position to make some very interesting moves, but whatever they decide to do is going to have a major impact over the trajectory of the NFL for at least the next 5 to 10 years. And that's all the time I got for you this week. Thank you so much for watching the video. We're talking, of course, a bunch of off-season moves, NFL draft, free agency, so stick around for all of that. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and of course, get the bell on to know every single time I'm dropping a video. My name's Tristan Blake Rines. I'll be catching you in the next one. Adios.